At exactly 4:14 a.m. on October 22nd, 2025, Ukraine's military intelligence agency dropped a bombshell, not on the battlefield, but on the internet. In a classified report made public in coordination with Western cybersecurity experts, Ukraine revealed that North Korea had secretly sent more than $1.7 billion worth of weapons, ammunition, and technology to Russia over the last 18 months. It wasn't just the amount that shocked the world. It was the sophistication of the operation, a global web of fake companies, ghost ships, encrypted messages, and secret payments that stretched across 3 continents. Within hours of the leak, the story dominated headlines from Washington to Seoul, and for good reason. Because this wasn't only about weapons, it was about how far Russia was willing to go to keep its war alive, and how Ukraine managed to expose one of the most secretive arms networks in modern history. The signs had been there for months. Analysts noticed strange cargo activity in Russian-controlled Far East ports. North Korea's steel exports had suddenly spiked, and there were encrypted digital communications linking Pyongyang to Moscow. But nothing concrete tied these clues together until Ukraine's cyber intelligence team infiltrated a data relay hub in Vladivostok. Inside, they found the evidence that changed everything. Transaction logs, satellite shipment coordinates, encrypted chats between Russian procurement officers and North Korean arms dealers. The pieces fit. This wasn't an isolated trade deal. It was a coordinated military supply chain designed to feed Russia's exhausted army. According to the leaked dossier, the entire scheme began in early 2024 under the codename Operation Goryeo Line. It was run by North Korea's Second Economic Committee, a branch that handles the regime's weapons industry. The goal: deliver a constant flow of artillery shells, rocket components, and short-range missiles to Russia, all hidden under fake cargo manifests. Most of these shipments were disguised as industrial or agricultural equipment. Deliveries moved along 2 routes, one by land, the other by sea. The maritime route was the most complex, involving dozens of ships registered to front companies in Panama and Cambodia. These vessels would leave Rajin Port in North Korea, sail through the Sea of Japan, and unload at Vostochny Port in Russia. Satellite images revealed the same pattern again and again. Containers offloaded at night, guarded by Russian naval troops, while communication blackouts hid the activity from outsiders. What looked like normal trade was actually a lifeline for Russia's war machine. But the real twist came from the digital side. Ukraine's cyber experts, with help from European analysts, cracked encrypted chats between Pyongyang and the Russian logistics ministry. What they found was stunning. A series of cryptocurrency transactions worth hundreds of millions of dollars, moving through coins like Tether and Monero. The funds went from Russian defense contractors to North Korean intermediaries based in Malaysia and the UAE. The purpose: to pay for shipments of artillery and missile parts, while avoiding detection by the global banking system. By tracing those payments, Ukraine discovered that North Korea had become the silent backbone of Russia's artillery war. Over 1.2 million rounds of 152mm shells had been shipped since mid-2024, nearly 40% of Russia's total shell use on the Eastern Front. The shells weren't perfect. Many were old or inconsistent, but they kept the guns firing. And in this kind of war, volume matters more than precision. Each North Korean shipment was a reminder of Russia's growing desperation. Sanctions had crippled its domestic production. Factories lacked materials, skilled workers were gone, and Moscow had to rely on secret deals with isolated states to survive. What Ukraine exposed wasn't just illegal trade, it was the collapse of Russia's military independence. And the leak revealed something even more dangerous: blueprints showing hybrid missile design, combining Russian guidance systems with North Korean chassis. It wasn't just buying weapons, it was sharing military technology to dodge international arms bans. For analysts out west, it was a wake-up call. It proved that the war was being sustained not only by Russia's army, but by a network of sanctioned regimes helping from the shadows. By sunrise, the fallout had already begun. The United Nations Security Council called an emergency meeting. Delegates reviewed Ukraine's data, satellite photos, shipping manifests, and encrypted messages showing how the trade violated UN resolutions banning arms sales to North Korea. Inside the chamber, the mood was tense. Russia dismissed the claims as Western propaganda. China asked for more verification, refusing to condemn North Korea outright. But the United States, the UK, and South Korea pushed for new sanctions on the shipping companies and digital wallets involved. South Korea confirmed that the artillery shell markings matched North Korean production codes. Japan expanded its naval patrols across the Sea of Japan. The European Union froze crypto wallets tied to Pyongyang and announced a new package of sanctions against North Korean intermediaries. In just one day, the dossier triggered a wave of international action, turning a secret trade route into a global scandal. But the story didn't stop with ships and shells. It went deeper, into the world of cyber warfare. Investigators found that the entire payment system was managed by North Korea's Reconnaissance General Bureau, the same organization behind the 2014 Sony hack and several high-profile crypto thefts. These operatives had set up mixers and offshore wallets to launder funds for weapons deals. Ukraine's discovery blew their cover. Now Western cyber units had new targets. For the first time, financial lifelines of two isolated regimes were under attack. In Pyongyang, the response was pure defiance. State media called the Ukrainian report an imperialist lie, but satellite images told another story. Military traffic at Rajin and Chongjin ports spiked. Officials were seen trying to move containers before international inspectors could act. South Korean intelligence later confirmed that Kim Jong-un held an emergency meeting with his top military advisors and suspended all maritime exports temporarily. Meanwhile, in Moscow, panic set in quietly. Russian defense officials privately admitted the situation was serious. Without North Korean shells, their artillery capacity could fall by 30% within 3 months. Factories couldn't keep up. Labor shortages and sanctions had drained resources. For the first time since the invasion began, Russia's ability to sustain the war was in real danger. The economic cost for North Korea was also devastating. Within a week, crypto accounts were frozen. Shipping insurers blacklisted its vessels, and trading partners started backing away. Analysts estimated Pyongyang could lose up to $600 million a year from these new restrictions. Worse, its reputation as a reliable black market supplier was shattered. For decades, North Korea sold weapons to rogue groups and small nations across the Middle East and Africa. Now, none of them wanted to risk being linked to this scandal. Inside North Korea, paranoia spread rapidly. Satellite data showed increased movement around government buildings. Defector sources said several high-ranking officials had disappeared. 2 senior figures from the Weapons Export Committee were reportedly detained for operational failures. Kim Jong-un's regime had been exposed, and fear was the only response. For Ukraine, this was more than an intelligence win. It was a strategic masterstroke. Kyiv had shown the world that information could be as powerful as firepower. The country's intelligence community, especially the GUR and SBU, had transformed since the start of the war. They used open-source data, satellite imagery, and blockchain analysis to expose networks that once seemed untouchable. Their success turned Ukraine into a respected intelligence hub. NATO officials began calling Ukraine's cyber forces Europe's frontline intelligence network. Even countries like Japan and Sweden opened direct cooperation channels with Ukrainian cyber teams. Ukraine wasn't just defending its borders anymore, it was shaping the global intelligence landscape. This revelation also changed how nations think about war. It proved that the battlefield isn't only physical, it's digital, financial, and psychological. Russia's guns might have the range, but Ukraine's data had the reach. By releasing verified proof, Kyiv dominated the narrative and forced global action. Information became a weapon, precise, silent, and devastating. The G7 issued a joint statement calling North Korea's arms trade a direct threat to world peace. Sanctions multiplied, vessels went dark, shipping routes collapsed, and Moscow's once secret alliances began to crumble. Even inside Russia, pro-war bloggers admitted that artillery rationing had begun. The myth of endless firepower was gone, and behind that silence was Ukraine's quiet, methodical cyber offensive. By the time dawn broke over Kyiv on October 23, 2025, the message was clear. The age of secret wars was ending. Transparency itself has become a weapon. Ukraine had not only exposed a $1.7 billion arms network, it had shown that truth could disrupt supply lines, cripple economies, and change strategy. For Russia, it was a humiliation, economic disaster for North Korea, and for Ukraine, a victory that didn't require a missile, only data, timing, and courage. As President Zelensky said in his address that morning, "This war is not only fought with weapons, it is fought with truth. And today, truth has prevailed. The world had witnessed a new kind of warfare, one fought with satellites, servers, and relentless transparency. And at the center of it stood Ukraine, not just as a nation under attack, but as a pioneer of modern intelligence warfare. Because in this century, the strongest weapon isn't always the loudest. Sometimes it's the one that speaks in numbers, code, and undeniable facts. And at 4:14 a.m. that morning, Ukraine proved that truth itself can shake the world.